So the question is, how do you get stronger? Now, that is a very broad question, but I'll do my best to answer in a couple of different ways. First off, the question to ask yourself is, what do you want to get stronger at? Is it a 1-rep max? Is it a specific exercise? Is it just feeling stronger in general? A lot of different questions there. First thing I'll start by saying is that there are many paths to strength. There is conjugate, there's linear periodization, there's triphasic, any other kind of phasic they've made up by now, undulating periodization. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. The best way to go about it is the way that works for you. Whatever you can manage as far as days in the gym, how much time you got, find one that fits into that framework. Another thing that factors into it is specificity. Are you trying to get better at a certain lift? So if we're talking like power lifters, they want to get better at the bench, squat, deadlift. Doing variations as close to the real thing are ideal. And doing the barbell bench, back squat, and deadlift as frequently as possible would be ideal. Only problem with that is that it takes a toll on the body, and you really can't do it for very long, pushing tons and tons of weight doing the exact same motion. So sometimes changing it up a little bit, but staying kind of close to what you're trying to achieve helps with that. So as far as like a 1-rep max and just trying to get as good as you can at a certain exercise to lift it one time, that's what you need to consider. Now, let's say we're general population, average person wants to get stronger and feel good. Now, you could do that in a bunch of different rep ranges. You could do 2 repetitions, you could do 20 repetitions, but for most people, anywhere in that like 6 to 10 rep range is ideal because it doesn't beat up your body as much as the extremes on the low and the high end. And when it comes to exercises, doing the things that involve more joints, the more functional movements are going to make you feel a lot stronger in everyday activities. This could be stuff like doing loaded carries, instead of barbell back squat, doing goblet squats, doing core exercises like bird dogs, dead bugs, and stuff like that, where the core is very involved in the movement. Now, if you're trying to put on a ton of muscle and that's your only objective, doing stuff that requires a lot of core stabilization, like stuff that's single-legged or just off balance in general, that requires you to really focus on the balancing aspect, not ideal for muscle growth if you're trying to maximize it. But back to the original goal, if you want to feel good and feel strong throughout the day, that's the kind of stuff that you would do. And the overarching theme with anything you do is going to be progressive overload. So what I mean by that is you're doing a little bit more each day. That could be 1 repetition. That could be a more challenging tempo. That could be another 2.5 pounds on the bar. Any sort of progression would be great. And then over time, like over the course of 4 to 8 weeks, doing a harder variation. That is another version of progressive overload. So let's take the split squat, for example. If you're doing a standard split squat, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, tap your knee to the ground and stand. Great. After 4 to 8 weeks, if you can do it with that back leg raised up, that's a little bit harder. So that's one way that you can progressively overload, and you then would be stronger. And the last thing I'm going to cover is deloads. When you're trying to get stronger, when you're trying to put on muscle, when you're trying to pretty much work towards anything, eventually your body needs a little bit of a break, because you can only give the body so much stress before it needs to relax for a little bit so it can adapt and get stronger. So a good rule of thumb is every 4 to 8 weeks, somewhere in that range, take a week where you cut all the volume by 1/3. Traditional powerlifting would be like 3 weeks of progressively overloading and then taking 1 week for that deload where you cut that volume down. Or on the other side of the spectrum, if you're trying to build a lot of muscle, more times than not, those movements don't generate as much fatigue. So you can push it to like 8 weeks. So you could do 7 weeks of progressively overloading and then deloading for 1 week. But the best thing you could do is really go by how your body feels. A lot of factors play into this, like, are you sleeping really well? Are you eating right? Are you stressed at work? Is your family driving you nuts? Like, that stuff will add on to the fatigue. So you might have to take a deload a little bit earlier than planned. So feel it out. Find what's best for you. Step 1 is establishing that goal. Find out what you want to get stronger at, and then use these tips to help you get there.